Washington, D.C. In the span of a single news cycle, three things happened at once. The Department of Justice filed charges against a former foreign head of state. The President of the United States declared he would liberate that same country. And the Pentagon, according to reports, already has military plans on the table. Separately, each of those developments is significant. Together, in 48 hours, they raise a question that deserves to be asked out loud. Is this a legal process unfolding, or a narrative being assembled? Overnight, U.S. media confirmed that the Department of Justice has moved to indict former Cuban President Raúl Castro. The charge: ordering the 1996 shootdown of private American aircraft operated by Brothers to the Rescue, a Cuban-American group that had been flying into Cuban airspace to drop anti-government leaflets. Within the same window, President Trump publicly declared the U.S. would liberate Cuba. Pentagon contingency planning for military options against the island has been separately reported. Three institutions, three moves, one news cycle. If the 1996 shootdown is the legal foundation here, there is a complication, and it comes not from Cuba's side, but from the U.S. government's own files. Declassified Federal Aviation Administration records show that Cuba had sent repeated formal complaints to Washington in the months before the shootdown. Letters, cables, diplomatic protests, warning that unauthorized American aircraft were entering Cuban airspace and demanding the U.S. act to stop them. The FAA's own documents show that President Clinton had personally assured Cuba that no aircraft would enter its airspace to drop leaflets. That promise was not kept. Multiple flights had filed false flight plans before diverting into Cuban territory. After the incident, the FAA revoked the licenses of several private operators for those illegal incursions. In short, the agency now prosecuting Cuba's former leader operates within a government whose own aviation authority documented in writing that Cuba had warned Washington, and Washington had failed to respond. That context does not vanish because an indictment has been filed. 2 months ago, the Department of Justice prepared a separate case against Raúl Castro, that time on drug trafficking charges. The Drug Enforcement Administration reviewed it and rejected it outright. Insufficient evidence. The story disappeared within days. Now a second indictment has arrived. Different charge, same target, same outcome sought. When a prosecution collapses once for lack of evidence, the burden on the second attempt does not decrease. It should increase. Significantly. The word being used in foreign policy circles, quietly for now, is the Powell moment. In February 2003, Secretary of State Colin Powell stood before the United Nations and presented what he called definitive proof that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction. The presentation was detailed, authoritative, and confident. It was also, as history confirmed, built on intelligence that did not hold up. The invasion followed. No weapons were found. No one is saying that is what is happening here. But the structural pattern, a rapid legal justification, disputed internal evidence, simultaneous military planning, and public rhetoric about liberation, is one that serious observers are not willing to ignore a second time. Before this moves any further, 4 questions deserve clear, public responses. Why now? The shootdown happened nearly 30 years ago. What new evidence exists in 2025 that did not exist before? How does the prosecution address the FAA record? If Cuba warned Washington repeatedly and Washington failed to act, does that affect the legal case? The public has a right to know. What happened to the drug case? The DEA found no evidence 2 months ago. What changed? Or did only the charge change while the goal stayed the same? What does liberate Cuba actually mean? When a sitting president uses that phrase while his Justice Department files charges and his Pentagon develops military plans, it is not a rhetorical question. It requires a precise public answer. Cuba in 2025 is a country already under severe internal pressure. Crippling fuel shortages, power blackouts lasting up to 20 hours a day, record emigration. Some strategists would argue this is precisely the moment external pressure is most likely to succeed. That may be a calculation leap. The concern is whether the legal machinery is now being shaped to serve it. We do not know that. What we do know is this. The last time the world accepted a rapid legal military case against a sovereign nation without asking enough hard questions first, the consequences lasted 2 decades. That is not a prediction. It is a precedent. And the time to ask the questions is before, not after.